All right, factory air locker installation on a 95 Mitsubishi Montero. Just going over a few things that you're gonna need to keep in mind if you're gonna do this. First is the axle. You have to make sure you have the 12-bolt axle, and if not, you'll need the 9.5 12-bolt axle, which is what I had to do on my LS because I don't have that larger 9.5-inch rear. Those are the bolts I'm talking about. 12. I think it's 10 or 8 on the 9-inch. But this is the third member. This is all you'll need, plus the believe driver's side axle, correct me if I'm wrong, to install this if you already have the 9.5-inch rear. If you don't have the 9.5-inch rear, you need the entire axle assembly with the third member and the 2 axle shafts, which obviously aren't here right now. And then you will also need the drive shaft. The drive shaft is larger on the 9.5-inch rear, so keep that in mind. You'll need basically this whole assembly plus the drive shaft from the donor car. Probably easiest if you put it on wheels and roll it out if you're at the junkyard and get the whole thing. Next things, here are the axles here. That's the larger, I think it's a 4-inch drive shaft, I'm not entirely sure. And then the here are the interior and then outside of the axle pieces you're going to need. So here you have this is a sensor harness. This connects to the locking diff through one little connector here, and then it connects about halfway up. You'll just follow it from the axle and you'll figure out where it stops. So you want that whole assembly, and you should have holes for all that and a switch on your car without a locking axle. This is the interior harness. So this is underneath the center console. Comes with this switch here. You may or may not need this. Check if you have the plug in the switch location, which I'll show you in a second. But this just unplugs from under the center console and runs all your accessory bits in the center console and some of the switches, and it plugs in here. There's an extra blank. Then the air system itself. This is the air line itself that runs with this banjo fitting onto the rear axle, and then this long hose right up here is going to run up and into the vehicle and connect to this pump. This is the air locking pump. So it's a low pressure factory pump, a lot like the cruise control pump, and just got one wire on it, and I'll show you that is in the car as well. Lastly, you're going to need the locker ECU, and all of these things you should have the switches for on your car. You don't need to go and splice in pigtails or anything. So in here, it's going to be right around here. You have to remove all this stuff up here basically, or most of it at least, and then get this panel out. And you got to get beneath there, and it's like one bolt, and you got to finagle it out, and you're good. The other thing you need, switch harness. It's going to be under here. Just remove all this and unplug it, and there you go. Last part is going to be in here, and you're going to be looking, ignore all my stuff in here, it's going to have to come out, but right up in here is where you're going to find it, the locker pump itself. You're going to have to flip this seat up, and there's going to be a couple bolts underneath this carpet you have to get at, and then that whole piece comes out. And then the hose runs down that way, and I'm pretty sure that's the one right there that the hose comes out of for the locker. So you're going to need to fish that out of there on the donor car, and then probably cut a hole right there when you're installing it. And that's where it plugs in right there. That's where the banjo fitting I was talking about goes. And there's the sensor harness right there. So that's pretty much it. And once you've plugged everything in, you should have a factory air locking diff. Also, these are Siberian bushings. They're polyurethane bushings, and basically can't kill them, and going to be much better than factory or stock. So if you're doing all this, I highly recommend you do the all the trailing arm bushings, the seals in here, the axle seals while you're there, and the transfer case. Can't see it up here, but the transfer case output seal. Just while you're there, you might as well do all these. And then also these little rubber O-rings that go right around here. They're pretty easy to get from the factory. They're like $3 each, but those O-rings, and then all your obviously your gasket maker and everything. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Also sway bar stuff, just replace that while you're there. And yeah, so happy wheeling.